I'm Matt Martelli. This is the Off-Road Racer Podcast. I'm here with a longtime friend and, multi-time drift champion. A lot of accolades in drifting.
Yeah,
Chris
thanks.
Forsberg.
Yeah, no, thank you. I've been wanting to come down, checking out the podcast, over the years, and you guys do a fantastic job with doing all the off-road races. But even I remember way back in the old Gymkhana days,
Yep.
you guys were just there from the beginning, really setting the bar high, and we actually just came back from the Racer Creator Summit last night, and
Which was really cool.
It was really, really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, so I got to be out on the panel for that, and we're talking about like the early days and the early shifts into what the media space looks like now. And yeah, your name came up, of course, because you guys were there in the beginning as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I saw that creator panel. I actually wanted to go, but I had some family stuff that weekend.
All good.
But no, and we were just talking about Long Beach Formula Drift. You guys did really well there.
Yeah, we qualified third on that new digital Wally system, which is it's a GPS unit that sits on top of the car, measures your speed, your line, and your angle, like the physical placement of the car on track, how much angle the car has. And in qualifying, which we now have back, no more seating for the pro, which is, I think, fantastic. Qualifying is fun. It's the only time you have the whole course to yourself.
Right.
So when they took that away and we're doing all the seating, there was never a moment where I was just, this is Chris Forsberg, this is his Nissan Z, and like, here's the track, right? And so you were always in tandem with basically a conflicting manufacturer and partner. And so it sounds silly to say that, but like, yeah, to have that moment on the track and like just watching the names bounce around, going through qualifying, it's cool. It's fun to have it back, especially with something that's so linear, such as the Wally system.
Sure. No, the bringing data to drifting, I think, is a tremendous step forward.
Huge.
Because I think that when you have sports, and specifically motorsports, that are based on a panel of judges, it's difficult for people to understand the innuendos, right? The details, right? And we're especially in America, we're cavemen. We're like, who won?
Yeah.
And then everybody else lost, right?
Well, it's funny because everyone, the first thing that people think when we're like, oh yeah, it's drifting, it's a judged motorsport. They're like, oh, like figure skating. And it's like the only thing people can think of that is judged. But all forms of motorsport and even regular sports have judges. There's referees. There's, in boxing, you have a judge, like you punch each other 800 times, but that guy wins, right? And so there's still a judgment call in many, many forms of sports. You have umpires calling strikes or balls and all of that. And so, and then even in racing, you have race control. Like, was that a penalty? Do you have to give that position back? Do you have to take a pit stop? So there are, there's always a human, factor, even in other forms of racing. And so that's what most people don't understand. And so, but what's cool about this is now we have that digital format, like you have a clock, in racing, but there's still a little bit of human adjustment. So we have 80% of our qualifying scores on the digital side, and then 20% is on the human side. So they basically get to add or subtract like your style, your ability, your kind of control, the little things that the Wally won't see in between the points that it's picking up.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool because we were talking about it before of like, it in not just in drifting, but in all forms of motorsports and sports, when there's judges, they have fatigue, right?
Yeah.
Mental fatigue of like, hey, I've been watching 40 cars come through here.
Yeah.
Then they have their favorites, right? And then, there's also human error, right? There's like, oh, wait, I mixed that guy up with this guy, right? And I think, especially with drifting, I see a level of detail of what makes, a good run and a bad run, and that gray area in between, that the judges have to be on it.
It's difficult, and that's the part that's hard to kind of capture when you're watching. Anyone can sit in the stands and be like, oh, that was a good run, that was a bad run. But a good run versus a great run is very difficult to see those little differences of like, that 3 inches further on the track, to the edge, and like just having the angle that much more locked in without the little waivers. Just all those little details that the judges are trying to focus on the whole time and, generate a score out of 100, with 40 guys. And so that is difficult. And they've done it in ways where breaking it down like, 40 points per line, 30 points per angle, and and trying to have these like different scalable areas. But now that they're only focusing on like the physical style and just like kind of looking at the movement of the driver and the car on the track and letting the the Wally take over on the physical line, the physical speed, the physical angle is great. But then when it comes down to the tandem, it's the other way around. It goes 80% judges, 20% Wally. So Wally becomes a tool to see how the cars are in proximity to each other, but the judges still make the overall decision. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, because what I, and you tell me, but what I've always seen as very difficult in tandem is the guy in front of you is leading, right? So if he makes a mistake, you have to compensate and adjust, right? So now it's not just you and your car control; it's like you and your car control, and you have to actively adjust as you're basically sliding sideways.
Yeah. So it's like, imagine, off-road race, you're in the dust, you're right behind someone, and you have to punch through that visibility, cushion to get up on them, and then you can see again, right? Same thing with drifting. If you're 2 cars back, you can't see an absolute thing.
Right.
But if you are right up in the pocket, you're ahead of the smoke trail, and you can see that car. So our entire run is basically in that moment that most off-road racers hate, which is like trying to get around someone. But that's just where we live.
But you have to live.
You
have to live there and not pass.
Yeah,
them.
we're not allowed to get around them. And if we move away from if we move on the inside to be able to see, then you're offline.
And you're not allowed to nerf them either.
Nope.
Right? So
even though they do.
Right. So a few differences. So what you obviously you're very accomplished in drifting. What made you decide to try out desert racing?
Just looks way cooler. I mean, I'm not full-blown trophy truck racing, but just seeing, trophy trucks and ripping through the desert and just flying. And it's always been very impressive and just like captivating to me. I love the aspect of just having to go such a long distance versus, a 30-second run. You're running for hours and hours at a time, and every turn is new. That's not like the same repetitive lap. It's the complete polar opposite of drifting, in my opinion, when it comes to the type of driving. It's endurance versus immediate. It's long distance versus short. It's a one-way road versus a consistent 3-turn course, short course. It's like the shortest short course, and so but yeah, it just has so many differences. And, that's what I really, really enjoy about it. And so just trying to challenge myself to do that. Like we are just running in Class 7, and we're specifically doing that because we worked with Nissan and getting the Frontier back in the desert. Nissan used to have a big place in off-road many, many years ago.
Huge.
And it kind of took a long pause. And so just like myself with the drifting side, trying to pull them back into the off-road space. And the way that we were able to do that was to take the Frontier, take it down to the Nora 500, and we ran it in the Class 7, and we were able to go down, finish the race, won the class, and we then created the Nissan Frontier Forsberg edition, which was all of the components that we had on the truck. It had all the Nismo off-road suspension, the wheels that we built for, which are actual beadlock wheels that you can buy from them, and we had like a roof rack on there, the little rock rails, and so all of those components that were on the truck that we won the race with became a package you could get from the dealership. And so trying to get them to lean more into, the off-road side of things and understanding that, they have like great heritage there and like, how much further can we take it?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like their heritage is pretty rad. And
it is.
And in fact, like
freaking Chuck Norris drove one.
Among it, the Mirrors gang drove them too. Like, in the last 2 years of the Mint 400, it was the Nissan 400.
Yeah.
Because they had sold the hotel, and Nissan's like, well, hold on. Like, we want to keep doing this, right? So a lot of cool history there with mid-sized trucks. And that was the era of them,
I know, it's cool.
Which is really cool. So I was glad to see. First, I was glad to see you come over, and I'd say this to every single drift guy is like, come over, and for not just for my own selfish reasons, but also is you can take your relationships that you've built in Formula D and in drifting, and you can cross them over, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys have done. One thing I'll really always give you guys credit for is you guys have done a really good job of building your fan base personally as athletes, but also as the whole Formula D package, and that's been inspiring for us, but also really cool to see from a from a media standpoint, how hard everybody works at the content game, both on and off the track.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot, and we kind of learned this from the very, very beginning. We come from, I say we as in like a lot of us drifters come from like skating or BMX type backgrounds, and so you're always like kind of sitting around waiting for the next like VHS tape to come out, of your favorite riders. And so there was always that like, oh, they're going on tour and they're doing these events and they, capture it and then they sell the tapes. And so we were doing that right out the gate in 2003, our first season we ever did Club Loose out in New Jersey. We had our buddy, filmed all the events, made a little DVD, sold them at the track. And then from there it turned into, Formula Drift. I moved to California. Formula Drift gets announced. Go out and get a part of, a couple partners to get me around to those events. And then yet again, we're like starting to film and make another DVD in 2005 with Destroy Entertainment. And so that was,
Eric.
Yeah.
My boy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And so, we made a DVD with them, with Destroy, and it was in like Walmarts and Tower Records and such.
Yeah.
And then this was all before not the internet, but before YouTube and social media, And so this is 2005, 2007, we did another DVD, and then YouTube came out in like 2008.
Yeah.
And so that's when we started kind of shifting everything to online content because unlike, I don't want to say all off-road racers, of course, but obviously the ones that are racing in the top class generally have, a lot of support on their own. And so for us, we had to build that,
right.
So we had to learn, the hard, fast way that if you don't want to work in a restaurant the rest of your life, you got to put some effort in. And then that's how we built this like brand loyalty and working with the different companies that we have. Most of my relationships are over 10 years, some of them over 20 years now. And so having that support, and I'm kind of jumping around here. I'm going from fan base to the partnerships, but it still really comes down to like understanding like the support that you need to be able to achieve the goals that you're setting out for yourself. And so that comes from not just giving back to the fans and working with them. It's the same thing with the partnerships. You got to treat everybody the same if you want to last in this industry.
Yeah, they're all interconnected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that again was some of the inspiration that we saw, like when you guys were doing those early videos. I'm like, man, these guys are hustling. They're they're not in California, so you're not getting all the love that motorsports gets in California. You're like out in the woods in Philly and or out in the woods in Pennsylvania and then New Jersey and so on. And I mean, to us growing up in skateboarding, it was all about skate videos, right? So it was the same concept. You guys just started doing it with motorsports, which I'll be honest with you, that was part of the inspiration of the first Gymkhana.
Oh, wow.
Was we knew that like, hey, we're gonna put this out online, but like we didn't want to put on YouTube because we didn't understand YouTube. Do we own it or do they own it?
Yeah.
Right. And so the first publishing of it was on our server, and it was in like 7 different formats. You had to put it in Windows Media Player, Flash, right, QuickTime, all that stuff. And I get a phone call from my friend who ran the service for us, and he goes, hey, I'm going to do you a huge favor and save you a bunch of money. You need to go put this on YouTube or you're going to basically be making house payments to me.
Wow.
So, so that's what we did. But, and it was funny because even at that point, I felt like, hey, we should make DVDs and sell them. That was still the model at that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That was like the big transition was, there was still like a desire for physical media, right? Not just it living online. People didn't really trust it yet, right?
Right.
So it's like, what do you mean I can just like watch this? Like I got to download it, probably going to download a virus, so.
And we thought it might just go away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? YouTube wasn't what it was today. It was this brand new company that nobody understood the business model. And we're like,
yeah, you're just sending your file to a website. Yeah. It's hard to trust that. You're like, we just put like, X amount of dollars towards this. We're just going to hand it away to someone. They can do whatever they want with it. But yeah, it was a different mentality back then. It was hard to kind of understand that transition. But yeah, when we were obviously pretty early adopters to it, which is why we're able to amass to like a large following, because we were trusting it and understanding that this was the right way to move forward, right? And to connect with the fans and being able to, communicate and share things. And, with that, Vaughn is, super, super smart when it comes to all of that. He really helped like get some of those deals done with Destroy, getting that first DVD. And, he was a bit of the catalyst of, he was the one that was like selling the Drift Alliance demo program to people. And then like myself and Tony were like getting the cars ready, and so we would physically make sure the cars are good to go. And like, he would do all the back end work to get us to the events. And that's how we were able to, go to El Salvador and China and like all these different countries. And, we did the Champ Car, when it was Champ Car, we did like all the demos with them through Formula Drift. And so, and that was where Drift Alliance really came together, because we were a package, right? And so it wasn't just like one driver. One driver's like, oh, just call the DA guys. We'll have 4 cars, And so we were able to really, because of, the amount of us, right? Like 3, 4, 5 drivers at times, we're able to kind of be our own sideshow and travel around, send all the cars together in one transporter, and it was awesome.
It was, what's funny is, I don't know if you ever saw this, but there was a effort to duplicate what you did with the Dirt Alliance, right?
Yeah.
And Travis, the guy who started that, was a young and vicious guy. Like, I talked to him quite a bit, but it was like what you guys did really changed and supercharged drifting,
Yeah.
because it really made it it kept it this punk rock thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there always has been a correlation between drifting and off-roading, and you see it manifest now, where you have events that have both, right? And you have racers like the Eisenhowers who do both, right?
Yeah.
And I remember people, some people that are purists being confused by it. I'm all, dude, it's a car. It's high horsepower. We're sliding it side. What's
fun?
What's not to like?
And why does it have to be one or the other?
The thing I'm always jealous of, like with drifting in Formula D, is how compact it is. Because we're dealing with 100-mile tracks.
Oh my God!
Right?
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh yeah, okay. And then how do we capture it and sell it and spectating and all those things? And I go up to like especially Long Beach and the setup up there, and I'm like, this is beautiful. I can sit here,
it's all right here,
have a beer, watch this go down, and you're like right on it. It's not like a lot of traditional racetracks where you're like way away from the race action. With Formula D, like you can be feet away from
Long
from the
Beach
course.
is as compact as it possibly gets. You have the entire track, you have a ride along area, you have all the pits, you have the hot pits, and it's all in a downtown setting.
Right.
Like you can walk the entire paddock in like less than 5 minutes, and you can walk to a restaurant in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And so like that is what's really, really cool about drifting. And it's funny because like you're saying, we deal with these, hundreds of miles, off road. And, you got the chase trucks, ripping after them. And that's its own, challenge in itself. And like when I'm doing some of the longer races and I have a second driver, like I really enjoy the chasing. It's super fun to me. Like watch on the iPad, seeing where the truck is, seeing where our road is and how we're going to intersect. And so that's like its own game to me. But it's funny because like in drifting, some of the times, like Road Atlanta, for example, we have to have our hot pit all the way on the back straight.
Right.
And so like watching people like kind of like moan and groan about loading up a truck and taking it, a half mile up the road. I'm just like, have you guys ever been to an off-road race?
Well, what, like the logistics part of it when you're doing a chase race.
Yeah.
It's like a war simulation.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny. I talk a lot about time that I spent with the McMillans, in particular with Scott McMillan. And he was a master at it, right? He was like a strategist, and the amount of information that they would take in, not just for their team strategy, but knowing where other teams are doing stuff. I'd be sitting in a car with him, and he goes, we're going to fuel here because I know these guys are going to fuel there. And if we get in here first, and then they're going to have to stop, if we have a problem, we can pass them, right? And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. So, yeah, it is fun. It's like the rolling logistics of chasing a race. It's especially the long races. It's this fun kind of roller coaster of emotions and things happening. Like you have these long periods where everything's fine and it's kind of boring, and you want to almost fall asleep, and then you get to these points where it's super intense.
Yeah.
And
0 to 100.
Yeah, and you're like, oh my God, we gotta the steering rack's broke.
Yeah.
we gotta fix it in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And, or whatever it is. So it's pretty cool. Let's talk about that. Like, so we had talked before as you were building this program, and I think I had recommended Nora to you as one of the races to start with.
Yeah.
Talk about what that experience was like, because it's you know. I grew up in this, right? So somebody goes, "Hey, yeah, go to Ensenada." I'm like, "Yeah, I went there when I was 13, right? I know where it's at."
Yeah, it's no, Nora is it's a great organization for those that want to try off-road, right? In my opinion. And of course, and I see a lot of other pro guys going to it because it's like a little lower stress form of racing as well. So it's like, okay, like, you're doing Min 400 and it's like just balls to the wall, right? The whole time, start to finish. And then some like, I see like the Eisenhower guys, like they'll go down and like operate, trucks for other people down in at the Nora races. And because what's cool about it has that rally format, the mandatory pit stops. You have to stop for 20 minutes, and so it kind of gives everyone that like breath of like, okay, let's look at the truck, like, do you need a water? Do you need to get out and take a piss, and so it kind of like rolls you into off-road without just like Baja 1000, go for it.
Yeah.
And so they do a good job at mapping it so like you can chase the vehicles and keep up with it. And so it really, really helped me get my foot in the door of it all. My first ever off-road race was the Baja 1000 back in 16.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and that did not go well.
Yeah. You got to tell this story.
It's crazy.
I get these phone calls from you guys, random people, and they're talking to me, and I don't ever want to be the harbinger of doom of like, I don't think that's a good idea. But I'm always like, here, think about this, this, and this, but talk about that first experience.
Yeah, so it was, once again, off-road racing, looks incredible, want to do it. And Valvoline, who was my sponsor at the time, they were like, hey, we want to do, we're going to build a truck, we're going to go down to Baja 1000, we're going to race it. And like, we want you and Ryan Turk to be the drivers. We're like, easy, done, let's do it. And so you start the build, and it's, they go with first-gen Dodge Rams. And so they're building it for the full size, so Class 8. And it was because of their relationship with Cummins, right? And so they were putting a Cummins engine into this old Dodge. And, I mean, the thing had, as we started to see photos and it getting built, it's like, okay, it's got leaf springs front and back, like, okay. And, and it's just like rolling on, like, I don't know, 37s or 40s. And we're just, looks more like a mud truck than it does a Baja truck. And so we're like, all right, it's all good. They're building, it's a team building exercise. They're building the trucks in the plant, and, we're just brought out to drive it. We go out to the first test session, and they had a couple UTVs, and me and Turk are shredding those things around. Like, okay, like, truck's ready to take it out. We take it out, transmission, mount brakes, trans falls out, break the transfer case in half. We're like, okay, like, rough start. And so they go back, they fix it. It's like 2 weeks before the race. Bring the truck out. Everyone's pumped. Trucks are there ready. We're supposed to do some pre-running. Truck's having issues. They're like, okay, well, we got this this like buggy for you guys to go do some pre-running in. We're like, okay, so we get this cool little buggy from like a local guy. Take it out, and like, oh my god, this is we're like one of the water crossings. I'm getting a little off topic, but it's funny. Pull up, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't think this thing's gonna make it through that, because it's a pretty low buggy, it's a 4-seater, like little V6 in the back, and Robbie Gordon pulls up, right, in his pre-runner, and he's just kind of like, looking. I was like, hey, what's up? I'm out of the car, and he's like, yeah, just go right on down through that, right there. And I was like, yeah, you think it'll make it? And he's like, oh yeah, no problem. Needless to say, it didn't. So the thing goes down, and just like, as soon as the rear tires hit the water, it was like deeper than it. It kind of like bellied up, and like got the weight off the tires. Tires spun, stopped, sunk, and just stalled out.
Dude, Robbie set you up.
I totally did. He just like watched it happen, put his truck in reverse, and went across the rocks.
Did he know who you were?
Yeah. We've had met each other a couple times over the years because we did that like D1 NASCAR event years before. So I think he knew that I was like that drift guy that was down and playing in their sandbox, and you're just like, hey, you want to learn a thing or two? Go sink your car.
That's so fun. Like, Robbie's like, okay, here you go, drift guy.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Your first water crossing.
Yeah,
right?
and did not go well.
Was that the water crossing going up to Mike's? Is that where that was at, or was it someplace else?
I couldn't quite tell you, but it was down by the water, on like pretty close to Ensenada, I believe. So, but yeah. Like there was definitely like a big rock wall that he was able to go across on the far side. And yeah, it was like there was 2 ways around it, and I didn't think I could low clearance could get over the rocks. I was like, oh, like the water or the rocks? What are we doing?
Oh yeah.
I'll never forget that story. Everything up until that was absolutely breathtaking, changed my life, right? I'm like in this buggy, ripping a dirt road, ocean to my right, sun setting. I'm just like, this is the coolest freaking thing I've ever done in my life. Like, it was just like hands down, like just like completely changed my mindset of like how incredible off-road racing can be, right? And so, especially just being in Mexico, it's like semi-lawless, and kind of get away with things, and it's just like really, really cool to experience that. And then I was just itching to get back ever since. And so that was back in 16. I didn't get back down there for my first NOR race until 21, I want to say.
Right.
It was like 5 years later.
Right. And so then let's go back to you guys do the pre-run.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's these trucks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I haven't even finished the story. We got off on the Robbie tangent.
No, it's fine. It's a good anecdote.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I know. It's a good story. It was literally like just, my literal crash course into off-road racing.
Right.
Robbie totally smugged me into a water pit.
Yeah.
But, and drag it out, whatever, get it back fired up, get back to Ensenada, race stays like in a day or two, get out there, truck's there, contingency, not contingency, but just like the roll up, the start and everything. It was like fun, exciting. All the people were there, take off. And I was not even like 50 miles in, right? I'm doing the first leg. Turk is like, ripping down south for his, where he jumps in, where, we're all ready for it, right? We're going 1,000 miles today. And so, they're like, Turk's like 500 miles down. And, I'm only 50 miles into the race. Front shock breaks off the truck. Basically like being cradled by the brake line.
Oh.
And, so we like get out, take the shock off, throw it in the back of the truck. We're driving the whole front of the truck. Basically the body mounts broke off the frame. So the whole like front of the truck's just doing this, like with every bump in the road. And so I get out and put a ratchet strap, from around the cage, down the hood to the frame and like holding that down because it's just literally flopping. I'm just like, this thing's not going to go another 900 miles like this. And come around to the first pit, which is, it was on, first access, which was on the road. What was that one? The road that goes from Ensenada just down towards
South,
like Quinton. Yeah.
Yep.
So we come in off of the hills, come down to the road and just like, this truck's completely falling apart, So we like give it like 15 minutes, right, before we dip into like that little town past the military crossing where you kind of go up and around the hill and you have that nice big fire road that runs along the hillside.
Yep.
Basically get to that point and there's like maybe like a 1 foot bump in the road and the thing gets like a little light off of it, comes down, transmission or transfer case just falls right out of the truck. I'm just like, cool. So we made it like 98 miles. So, not even 100 miles.
That's what it is. You know what I mean? Like,
it was insane.
People who haven't built cars for this have really no understanding of what it takes, right?
And we build, very, very high quality competitive cars for our sport.
Sure.
And when we got into, these other, the first race, it was we didn't build the truck, transfer case fell out of it, blah, 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 anything. And then the next time I came back, it was 21. We did a program, because I was able to, basically I was just itching to try and get a partner to help us get back to Baja. And so we had Slime jumped in and we built a UTV and it was a Polaris, a 2018. So like XP4, we converted with Cognito. We did like all of his suspension on there. And long story short, first day we're absolutely shredding. It was NOR 500, and we were like third in class. We're like, wow, okay. And so we like kind of like maybe started to take it a little too seriously. So day two, I'm starting off, and it was funny because it was we're starting off in that same spot, right? That like fire road that goes around down from that little town, and we come ripping around that, and I'm getting up to where we're about to like switch drivers, and basically the transmission just like cracks in half.
Ugh.
So I was in that. That sandy riverbed. Like there's a big bridge overhead, and you're running the sand underneath it, and it's like pretty heavy whoops, and I'm just going full speed, coming up to like a hard braking turn. So I'm like, on the brakes, it's like chop, 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 and just transmission just snaps in half. I was like, oh my God. So like 2 drivetrain failures in my first 2 events, and then fast forward to 2 years later with Nissan, and we're, the Frontier's coming out. We're like, we want to do something with the Frontier. What do you think? I'm like, taking to the desert. I'm 0 for 2. I'm ready for this.
Right.
So,
but this time
I know, I had no good track history, but I'm like, no, like we're doing it. We're gonna make it happen.
You got to build it.
Yeah. So then we built this truck, and
which is something that I really wanted to touch on because you're a self-taught mechanic, engineer, everything like that. Like that's one of the things to me that's very interesting. Both parallels off-road and drifting is like in the very beginning, you couldn't go buy a drift car. You certainly couldn't buy an off-road car. You had to build them.
Oh yeah.
And so, sorry to cut you
No,
off,
you're
but
fine.
I think a lot of people see the image of Chris Forsberg showing up in the bitchin' suit with all the sponsors, and they think you just helicopter in. You know what I mean?
That would be nice.
Yeah, but it's the opposite. It's like, you're doing the car build, you're doing all the sponsorship deals.
Oh yeah.
You're driving the semi, whatever, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
I drove my rig to Long Beach.
Yeah.
So like we're packing the trailer, driving it in, setting up awnings, doing all of it.
Right. So,
and of course we have I can't do all of it. I'm just saying like jack of all trades, master of none, so to speak, right? And so we probably have like a dozen people on the program, and everyone has their roles, but then I'm kind of dipping in on all of those, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, to your point.
Yeah, so this time you get to build the truck.
Yeah, and so we worked with a couple guys from the industry, and Jason Hurd, he did the design work on the cage for us, which was great, and then Cage Kits, they cut the cage out for us, and then everyone from my program, we built the truck. So we took the body off, reinforced the frame, plated it, caged it, and went through and just did, outside of adding the Nismo off-road components, just basically anything that we felt like, needed to be upgraded. Sure. And so it was all factory suspension mounts, all factory control arm mounts, and, just like that bolt-on package for that very, very first race. And we just put the heavy emphasis on, I'm like, okay, like, first 2 races I ever did, it was a fabrication failure with the transmission falling out because it was an engine swap, so it wasn't factory components. So it was a little less engineering and a little more just like that'll hold it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and then the next one was drivetrain failure, but it was factory components, right? And so transmission broke in half. Maybe I was driving it pretty hard, but like you kind of expected to take that. But So with this one, it's like, okay, like, we just need to make this thing like, like built like a brick shit house, right? And just go through it and make sure that, we're heavily relying on the drivetrain mostly, especially in a class 7. We're running stock engine, stock transmission, stock differential. And so with all that being said, we just went through everything top to bottom, and we were able to, take it down to NOR 500, absolutely 0 testing. We literally finished the truck, got in it, drove it to Mexico. Like that, our testing was literally like the drive to Ensenada. And that was the craziest part, because we're just like we didn't think we were going to make it. It was, we also didn't realize how long it takes to build a truck, even if it's a stock truck. Like there's so many freaking tubes that go into a truck like that. Like it was just endless. And so we had like 5 guys on it for weeks, and we're putting in the hours, and we just barely got done in time. Felt good about it, good enough to just get in, buckle up, and drive south, get down to Mexico. And we went, 0 pre-running, 0 testing, and we went all 500 miles, every single stage, no failures, nothing. And it was just perfect. It was exactly what needed to happen. That was like a really, really like fulfilling experience, because it was like, okay, like this is our program. We're building this top to bottom. Like it has to work. And, and now we have Nissan support. We're launching, the Nismo off-road components. And, we have this entire theory of like this Forsberg edition truck. And, if everything kind of goes well, it's like obviously like being kind of sprinkled in the background. And it went absolutely off without a hitch. 0 problems. It was so cool.
Did you have any moments from that race where you're like, you're either like, okay, this is it, this is awesome, or
oh yeah,
or it was the other way around, right?
I was 100% stressed out the whole time, and we even had Letitia Buffoni with us, and so we brought her in to be the second driver, because we were working with her a little bit on some other programs. I built her a drift car and teaching her drifting. She wanted to do off-road, and so we're like, this is a cool package to do with you. And so it was her first time off road, but we had we had a great co-driver with her, and they had no issues. Just slow and steady wins the race. It's about survival and endurance. It's not about speed. And outside of all that, and that was also what was really cool about that race, and it makes me miss it, is that was the last race. I mean, I only did the 3, with very little time overall, but that was the last race we ever did without a Starlink, and so it was just like, truck's heading that way.
Yeah.
See you guys in a couple hours, and like that was like really really cool. There's no cell service. You're not just pulling the GPS like the whole time. It was literally just like
it's Wild West.
Gas it up and let it
No,
go.
Obviously Starlinks have positively changed a lot of things for our sport, namely the content that you
of course.
You can
yeah,
push.
There's positive aspects,
but it
of
is
course.
it is different.
It's very different.
Right?
In the truck, it's different. From the
Yeah.
outside, it's fantastic because now you have the connection.
Even,
But just like to be that unconnected
yeah,
in the middle of nowhere, and
Yeah.
you have a satellite phone,
Yeah.
that's basically like if you get hurt. It's not like, hey,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
we're at this mile marker.
Yeah, how's the cat?
Yeah.
No, it's a very interesting point you bring up, because even from a chase perspective, it was like, now you don't really need to know everything that you used. Like the racecraft of chasing has fundamentally changed and
100%.
become much easier.
Mhm.
Like I remember sitting with guys who had they had maps that they created that nobody else had. And I'm like, hey, what's that? And they're like, one day you'll get this, but right now this is mine, and you're the kid, right?
Yeah.
And knowing chase roads and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, there's still a lot of that goes on, but the fact that you have like full blown GPS to navigate everything when you're chasing, and you know where your driver's at, and even now you can through lead nav and a couple other systems, you can see where all your chase is at, which is an incredible advantage, right? So
we use lead nav, and it's been working pretty well for us. But like that was like I was just saying, I'm just like really stoked that I got to experience that. Like what I see is like just a completely different era, and not to say like, oh, I got to experience it in the same ways like the Menzies and other people have, like 15 years ago when they're running trophy trucks at full speed and have chase rigs like trying to keep up. Like it was obviously,
dude, we used to race on the highway.
Yeah.
Right. There used to be no it used to be like, oh yeah, it's just watch out for people, right?
Yeah.
Like it was wild, right?
Yeah. So
And-
I got like the last like sliver of a taste of that before it kind of went all like very, very open communication. So I'm just saying like that was like a wild era that like you couldn't explain it unless you experienced it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is wild, and especially what was that juxtaposition like? Because again, you came from drifting where it's like everything's in front of you.
Yep.
We're
on
very
radio
controlled,
the
right?
whole time. Your spotter is only like a quarter mile away.
And then even on Nora, it's like, hey, we'll see you in 150 miles.
Yeah, and
That's
even that's what I'm saying. Like even Nora's like still very compartmentalized of like, okay, well like here's the next pit. We're gonna be waiting for you, and it's like a little out and back, and it was definitely an easier race to chase. And you're like you said, you're getting out of the truck. You're able to like get a quick stretch, have a drink, and look at the truck, make sure you're good, and like have that like kind of forced pit between the special stages. And so that definitely helped us, and we chose that race purposely because of it being this Nissan Frontier that we built, and we're like, we just gotta get this thing to the finish line, like no matter what, first or last, like we have to do the miles. And yeah, we had absolutely no issues. It was really really cool. And so and then moving on from that, like kind of got bit by the bug a little bit, and we started like upgrading the truck, and yeah, we started to have some issues. Like we blew the diff out of it at Vegas to Reno. We because it was like the thing that I noticed, and I was like, I couldn't wrap my head around this until the last event. So we're rolling on, we were 33s on that first race. Then we went to 35s, and we're still in that stock rear end. But I'm like, how, like, because we run towards the back, right? Because it's a slow truck, class 7. We launch out towards the end, got all the trophies going out and digging ruts out. And basically, like, how are these class 11s, able to carry more, pace than us in most of these sections? And what I figured out was, because like that W that gets built out, right? The two big ruts and then the high sides and the high center. Those little bugs, they're like, 70 inches wide, maybe. So they can get up on top.
Yep.
And the problem with our truck, we're almost 90 inches wide. It's like, new trucks are huge.
Yeah.
And so even though it's a mid-class, it's like, it's almost the same width as a trophy. And so it just constantly falls back into that rut. And so we're just dragging the diff. Like for the first 100 miles of Vegas to Reno, it's just the whole time until it eventually failed.
Right.
And we're just like, this sucks. Like we got to do something about this. And so yeah, we got a Curry back there now, full floater. It's really sick. And then, and we also were able to bump up to 37s. And so because of the Broncos coming on 37s factory, all the rule books have changed to allow the mid-class to run 37s. And so that helped a ton.
Yeah. No, it's very true. It's like even Vegas to Reno is a relatively flat course, but it does have ruts.
Yeah.
Right?
That first 100, I swear it was just dragging the diff.
And yeah, you've got to build accordingly. And, to your point, Class 11s are lighter and they have a narrower wheelbase and they have narrower tires. Like if you ever get a chance to drive one.
I want to.
Because it's shocking. You look at them from the outside and you're like,
I know.
It looks like a piece of shit.
They mob.
I
know they do because I'm racing them.
And yeah, and
it's me and all the bugs in the back.
Well, what's funny is having driven and ridden in them in races, I like you're laughing the whole time.
I always hear that. Everyone's like, it's like a rite of passage. Like, I want to do a Class 11 in Nora 500 and just like go have a blast with my friends.
It's like one of these things where like you look at stuff and you're laughing and you're like, we're not going to make it through this. And then you go,
It just gets up on top of it.
So
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's it's why those things were the they were the original off-road cars. You know what I mean? Those the VWs and Jeeps, and then VWs turned into buggies.
Yeah.
Because they started stripping away the body and lightening up, right? And then for decades, buggies were the dominant vehicle until Ivan Stewart, the Toyota program, came in, and he won his first race at the Mint, and that became the era of domination of
the truck,
that program, right? So
see, I don't know too much about that full history, so that's a really cool moment to kind of talk about. So yeah, that was the first time like a front engine, you're saying, like went out and took an overall.
Well, it wasn't just that it was a front engine; it was that buggies were designed with a with plunged rear axles, right?
Yeah,
because all the drivetrain had developed first from VW bugs, then it was VW buses, and then it was now we can use all the Porsche stuff, right? And then eventually that went to American engines, right? But we still have a lot of air-cooled engines that come out and race with us, which is cool.
That's so rad.
So you do Nora, and you're like, cool, we got it.
Yeah,
we know what we're doing now. Go to Vegas to Reno, get your face punched in again, right?
yeah, blow the diff out, and we had a skid plate on it too.
Yeah,
blew the skid plate off of it. And that's basically what took it out. That's the part that sucks. The skid plate, the one that we had, it mounted on there and it picked up the lower bolts in the back. And so when it got ripped off, it basically like broke the seal on the bottom, and we just couldn't keep fluid in it.
Yeah.
And so we drilled into the casting, added extra bolts. We peeled it off, cleaned it, glued it, put it back on, and it was just getting peeled back so bad that we lost fluid and eventually broke.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we didn't get to finish that race. What was I gonna say? We made it pretty far though. We were like, we got all the way to that final, I think it was like pit 9 out of 12.
Right.
When it finally let go.
So more than halfway.
Yeah. And so we put it on the trailer. We drove to the finish because everything's in Reno, right? And we're only 2 hours away. So we're not going back to Vegas. So we just go to Reno, and my wife's parents live there. So we went and tried to make the best of it.
Right.
Had a little hangout. It went to the after party. It was a good time. And then we went back to Nora after that with the rear end, with the Curry rear and everything else, and went out. And yet again, this is when we're still struggling with the ride height of the car. And we're doing great, hustling the race. Everything was feeling solid. We're racing with another truck, and we're way ahead of him. So we're just like, okay, final stage, just, it was literally the last pit stop, high fives all around. And I was like, all right, let's go take it home, Dip back in. And, side note, I was sick as a dog that morning. And that's the other thing about, with off-road racing, like, got up, had a little breakfast, at the hotel. Hour or so later, I'm in the truck. I was like, I'm gonna throw up all over myself, and I was able to hold it down, but like, it's like I'm like loosening the belts. I got the window down. I'm like just breathing heavy and just like sweat running down my face. I'm like pure white, and they're just like, "You okay?" I'm like, "No," just like, gotta keep moving, and you can't just pull over. But it passed, but it was like top 10 worst hour of my life, hands down. You're in a truck trying to drive it at pace and literally just swallowing down puke for an hour. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. And it passed, and I was okay. Got to that first pit stop, and I was the only driver for this race, so I was like, I can do the whole thing, And get to the first pit stop and just like crushing water, get out, just like get some fresh air. I'm like, all right, I'm good. Second stage, all good, still ahead. And then third stage, like I said, like high fives, all good. Going down, and we're like having that little like doing like a mini mob, like down this like rocky hill, and like everything was cool and like it was fun. And we like slow down, and I get it woed up. I didn't like just completely blow it. I get it woed up, and I'm kind of coming around like a tight corner, going maybe 20 miles an hour, right? And like a tight corner, and like same thing. It's like that, the little W setup, as I like to call it. And I'm like, I'm on the high side, and I'm going around the right turn, and it just gets a little to the crest, and it just pulls the truck down like this, and there's a rock, and just breaks the lower control arm right off the truck. And I was just like, I thought we broke a tie rod, because I just feel like boom, I'm just like, ooh, like that was bad, and it's like steering's bad, come to a stop, like I said, we're barely rolling, and so hop out of the truck, and like as I like close the door, it's just like the wheels just like in the body, control arm off, shock off. And I was like, holy, just like, oh my God. I was like expecting literally to jump out, 2 bolts, swap a tie rod, and get back going. And I was like, this thing's totaled. Like it just tore the mounts right off the truck. And that sucked. So here we are stuck on the side of a hill. We're about 40 miles in.
From the finish.
Well, we're about 100 miles from the finish. Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. We're probably halfway. Yeah. Because that last stage was maybe 100 miles. They're always like around 80 to 100 miles. And so we're probably like halfway through that stage, like 50 miles from the road, 50 miles from the finish, just like dead nuts, just buried. I was like, wow, like we are landlocked. And like, there's a few more profanities in there thrown around, of course. and then, once that kind of wears off, it's like, okay, well, we have to fix this thing. And so, we get the guys, we obviously get through them, thanks to Starlink, and like, say pack up the welder, the Jenny, and like, get some metal and all these other things. And, about 2 hours later, they get to us and pull up, and, we're like waving people by, because like other guys are still racing. So we're like being mindful and getting them by. And like, luckily it was just wide enough where they could fit. And and we had to, so while they were getting to us, like we pulled the straps off that hold the spare tires down, and I'm like ratchet strapping the control arm back forward, trying to bend the tabs back so we can weld them back to the frame. And we pull the shock off, pull the wheel off, and just get everything kind of prepped up so we can weld it all back together. And yeah, we had to like MacGyver that thing back together, get the lower control arm back welded to the chassis, get the shock mount back welded on because that snapped off too, and it was a mess. And and even better, we didn't have a trailer.
Oh, God.
So we weld this whole thing back together, and it's like it's a little off. And we drove it out, and we drove it all the way to California.
Back from Cabo.
No.
That was the 500.
Ensenada.
So Ensenada.
Yeah,
okay.
we're about like 50 miles south of Ensenada.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. It was like 4 hours of just this thing sailing down the highway.
So you get you got the full experience,
oh, yeah.
right?
Oh, top to bottom. Yeah. Like I've been, and like that was, the funny part was, that was right around the same spot where that Polaris, I swear it was the same stretch.
Yeah.
Because it looked very familiar to me.
That's how you
down by where that Pemex is, I think, like that like long. Yeah. I know I'm just kind of shooting in the dark of like, oh yeah, the dirt road next to the gas station.
Yeah. Earlier, you're like the dirt road by the bridge, by the wash.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's pretty much all
That's
Baja.
all of Baja, like you newbie.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, almost all of the racing that I've done has been on the north end. I haven't gone south, like because we've only done the Nora 500s, which is always in that upper area.
Which I think is, to your point, is a great way to like start, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not doing huge amounts of mileage. There's access points.
Well, they're loop races too,
Yeah.
which is why we went and did Mint 400 because it's also a loop, which is nice because like our chase team can just kind of triangulate through those pit stops.
Yes.
Like when we did Vegas to Reno with you all last year, I mean that was our first point to point race,
Right?
And that was tough. I mean we're doing it because what's kind of nice in a way is that since our truck is slow, the chase team has a better time keeping up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Vegas Reno coming up is the 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
And it's going backwards, right? So
we will most likely be there.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but so then you've had this experience with doing two Noras, right? You had a Vegas Reno.
Yeah. Mint 400.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
so then talk about getting to the Mint 400 because you and I were talking. And
Yeah.
I try and give people as much information as possible. And again, I don't want to discourage anybody, but I'm like, hey, dude, the course is rough. You're going to have to take your time. You're going to pick your way through it. Just get a finish, year one.
Yeah.
Then the next year you can pick up the pace. You can add, with the limited classes, we always try and give them a choice of how many laps they want to do because they usually have a better feeling for where is that limit.
Yeah.
And the Mint course is such that even in an unlimited truck, you overdrive it, you're going to break.
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, we were out there, we're doing the laps. There was multiple vehicles we saw on the roofs, like these guys are pushing hard. You catch a rock and you're going for a tumble. So it's a wild race for sure. And, so with the Mint, I heard the same thing. It's like, it's a rough race. You got to take your time. And, but just like right out of the gate, we went to 37s, like I said, because that was now allowed. So we went to 37s. We bumped up the truck. We reinforced the lower control arms, and we put a whole new front subframe in it. We reinforced those mounts, and we put like just even more effort into the front end than we ever did. And with the extra tire clearance, took a little weight out of the back. And so just overall ground clearance was up like 4 or 5 inches, which is pretty big, especially for that truck. So when we were like just first took off, just like not hearing the rocks on the, hitting all the skid plates, I was like, okay, I think we're going to be okay. And so we're just like you said, just kind of like cherry pick our way through there and just like drive smart. But being that it was a lap race, right? By the time we got launched out, and that's a whole nother story. Got to thank my boy Vaughn Gittin for getting me to the start line because I misinterpreted the starting order. Right? It was, you guys are doing 2 trucks every 30 seconds.
Yep.
And all the races I've ever done was 1 truck every minute. And so we're like the 190th truck off the line.
Yeah, we have a ton of time.
Yeah. And so we got like 3 hours, until we even go. And so like, we're probably not going to launch till like 11. And like, it's like 9 in the morning, 9:20 or something. And Vaughn texts me, he's like, hey man, like, is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? He's like, well, I see the trucks on the trailer, like, are you guys like heading out? I'm like, no, we're going. We're going to race. He's like, well, I think you got to hurry up. And so we're like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, like by my math, you're leaving in like 30 minutes. And I was like, so we like start like, making some calls and all that. And we're like, oh yeah, like it's happening now. And so we like ran down. We're like literally putting our suits on in the line,
right?
In the start line. But yeah, no, we obviously made it to our point. We had like a solid like 20 minutes to spare, but it was like, yeah, if we would have stuck to our time, we would have been launching last. And so
it's funny because like both myself and Killian, who is our race logistics manager, director, have this love-hate relationship with the start of the race.
Yeah.
Because like this year, it's like, okay, 554 entries.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, there's 178 of them racing on day one.
Yeah.
So then Killian's doing math and he's coming to me going like, all right, we can't have any hiccups because if the last guy goes off from that time, there's only 20 minutes until the race leaders come in around.
Oh yeah, race leader caught us instantly.
So we're like playing this game of get everybody launched before the race leader completes a full lap.
Yeah.
And those are the top UTVs and 10 car guys, and they're
flying.
They're flying.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So
those guys caught us. I want to say we were maybe 30 miles in.
Yeah.
And they were already getting around us.
Yeah. So that's always it's always a stressful time. But good look into Vaughn.
I know.
Keep you guys. He's like, I got some drifters here who don't know what they're doing. They're not even going to be on time. But it worked out. So tell us about that race. What was that like? Because you've had these experiences on relatively flat race courses, and there's challenging areas, especially in Baja.
Yeah.
In the upper area because it's really chewed up.
Yeah.
But then you come to the Mint and you're like, cool. What was it like?
Yeah. So, what I didn't realize was, you guys did side by side launches, which was rad. So that obviously cut the time in half. I didn't realize that. So yeah, just right out of the gate, you're launching next to another truck. So, and me knowing my scenario, I forget it was one of the Broncos next to me, and I just basically just like let them go ahead. I'm like, I'm not gonna race you to the first corner, and we just start like kind of bumping into each other. So I just kind of like let them pull ahead and just like dipped in behind, and we just like kind of went through that little short course, which was super fun, and got a little air with the truck, and then as we dip into the course, it was just that like long rocky road, and I was like, okay, like I can see why this is known as a very rough race, and so but like we had that better ground clearance, the truck sounded great, and as we're just communicating with the team, we're like, everything seems good so far, it's like that's like once again the nice thing about having all the links is that you can have constant communication, and so it's like, like truck's good, feeling good, just see the first pit, and we're just like mobbing the notes, and within like I said, within like 30 minutes, like maybe 45 minutes, we're getting our first push to pass, and it's all the UTV guys, and they were hauling the mail. And so got my first nerfing experiences. That was fun because there's no nerfing at Nora, and so these guys are like on the move. And of course, like as soon as we get the push to pass, I'm like, I realize that we're in a slow class, so like I will always move as soon as I am able to do so, but I'm not going to bury my truck or hit a rock, to move out of your way. Because there's a lot of sections where it's only one lane wide.
Right.
And so there's this one guy, he was probably running third because I remember the first two guys got around pretty clean. And then like one of the other guys that was coming up, it was like this very narrow section, like literally like rock walls on the side, only room for one truck. And he must have hit me like 3 times. I'm like, I don't know where you want me to go. Yeah. Like I physically cannot move out of your way. Like there's just vertical walls next to us.
We are talking
like I get it. You're there.
We are talking about this. It's like with Starlinks, I'm like, we should have car-to-car communication.
Yeah.
So the guy behind you can hear communication back, so you can be like, I'll pull over as soon as I can, dude.
And I always did. And like, being in a class 7, like, you are pulling over. Like, it's like being a big rake in traffic. You know how like if you've ever driven a big rake in traffic, and you have to leave that space cushion, right? And so then people are just constantly cutting you off, and you just like keep getting pushed further and further back in any sort of traffic. That's what it feels like driving a class 7 because you're constantly pulling over to let the fast guys by. Yeah. And so I was like, I'm pulling, pull, look, make sure no one's coming, dip back in, and so like you're doing that like 50 times, during the Mint. Like it was like every like 5 minutes we're pulling over to let like another guy go by, and so it's pretty wild.
And so you were that year you were a 2-lap race, right?
Yeah. So we did
you get the first lap done, and you're like, what was your impression at that point? You're like, dude, there's no place to rest here.
Yeah. There was there was no like mandatory pit stops or anything like that. So we're just pulling in, gas and go, and making sure that we everything was good on the truck. Just like kind of give it a quick eyeball check. And, if I felt like I hit something, just check for a gash. I'd rather swap a tire here than on the side. And no flats, no nothing. Just gas and goes. And what was cool about it was you guys had like the 3 different pits, and so like we made sure that our chase team was able to get to each pit before us, like by like as little as like 5 minutes at times. They said they would like just pull up while we're coming around. So like the pace of our truck versus one chase team was actually pretty awesome. Whereas like if we were in a fast truck, you probably wouldn't be able to do that. So you would have to like kind of have 3 different teams ideally. So for us, it worked out really well because we have like our media and our crew and everyone just kind of like hopping in between it all. And so yeah, we get the first lap done. I'm like, all right, like, yeah, like we can do this again, And so we go back out, and I mean, we were pushing that truck, and in my opinion, 90%. We weren't overdriving it by any means, but we're, just like any off-road race, you got to have some momentum, but also some cushion. And we still, even only doing 2 laps, it took us longer to do 2 laps than it took the UTVs to do 4. So we were out there for like, well, what was it, like 6-7 hours?
Yeah.
So yeah, like when the first guys were finishing. So when we came around on our second lap, like, yeah, there was already like 15 guys there. So, and they had launched, almost an hour before us. So like it was definitely a day. I was like, if we go out for a third, I'm like, if we like, cause we're trying to do the math on like what our pace was. If we went for a third lap, we would have been like pulling in at like 8 o'clock, like with everything going smooth, we're like, the finish closes at like 9 or something. I'm like, with 0 issues, we will hopefully finish before the the course closes.
Yeah.
But like if we went for, obviously if we tried to do 4 laps, we wouldn't even make it to the finish.
Well, you'd be in at like midnight, which they used to do, right?
Yeah.
Which is bonkers.
Which is really, really cool that you guys do that with the lap race. It's like, okay, you guys are putting in the same amount of time out there. You're just not going the same distance.
Yeah, I mean,
so it works out really well.
Equipment has changed radically.
Yeah.
And so we try and take that all into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
We want to give people as much distance and time as possible.
Yeah.
But there's a point of diminishing return where especially in the limited classes where there's a duty cycle on everything that you build, and it's going to fail.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
when is it going to fail?
Yeah.
That's the question, right?
Yeah, and it's obviously exponential. So it's like, okay, like if we're going for a third lap and we got to keep a high pace to make it for the finish closes, like we run a high risk of failure.
Well, plus because in racing in racing or drifting, there are course changes because the amount of rubber you're laying down, and all that kind of stuff, more so probably than any other pavement motorsport, right? Yeah. But then you get to this and you're like, hold on a second. Yeah. The course from lap to lap is completely deteriorating.
That's the other thing. It's when we were going around for the second lap, it was just like that much worse. And we're just like, yeah, it's going to be horrible. Like we wouldn't, like 2 is perfect for us. So, but I mean, to that point, like if we do Vegas to Reno this year or Reno to Vegas. And so, there is no shortcut. In all the other forms of racing, the Mint 400 this year was the only time where it was a physically shorter course for us. And being in the slow class, running towards the back, that was our other issue with when we did Vegas to Reno last year, because we launch out so late that if you have one single problem, you miss the cutoff. They're like, oh, the pit's closed. Like we're at the first pit, like 70 miles in, trying to put bolts in that diff, and they're like, you guys got to go in 10 minutes or you're gonna like get DQ'd. And we're just like, we've only been here for like 30 minutes. Like, it's not like we've been broken down for 5 hours. And so that's like the other thing that kind of sucks about being in that slow class is like, you can't have failures because you basically time yourself out. Yeah. And so that happened with us at the, not this past, this past NORA. We did the first stage, no issues, good pace. Just like, going, like I said, like about 80-90% of what the truck can do. And, like we felt confident with our timing. And we get to the end of the first pit or the end of the first stage. And they're basically, oh yeah, stage 2 is already closed. And we're just like, what? Like we've been like moving this whole time, like no issues, no stops, no nothing, like going about as fast as this truck allows us to go. And we left on time. And we didn't even make the second stage before it got closed. So they told us to jump forward and start at stage 3. And so we did that. We would go to stage 3. They've started us, and we took max time for stage 2, and then we launched out.
Right.
And the same thing happened with the other guy that was in our class. Like he didn't make the start either. Yeah. And we're just like, and so we're just like kind of getting bitched up in the truck. Like this kind of sucks. Like we are the slowest trucks, and we have the least amount of time on the course. Right. And so, like, how does that work? I'd rather be pulling over and letting the fast guys go by, because if you think about it, it's like if the slow trucks left first, they have like a little bit of run time to like close some ground.
Sure.
And you get like an extra hour on the track, maybe 2 hours, depending on how they're launching. But yeah, for us, I mean, we're launching almost 2 hours late at Nora because everyone's launching together. It's not day 1, day 2 like what you guys do. But you also have 550 freaking cars. So.
Well, and we do the math backwards too, and we're like, unfortunately now, because of our timing and scoring system, we've got data year by year, and we can do overlays and go like, oh, okay, cool. Last year, this class, they got 2 laps totally fine. We go back and ask them, hey, do you want to add a third? Right. The gamble is you may time out, but you get a third lap, right? So you make the call.
Yeah.
But we try and take that into consideration, and it's easier in a lap race versus a point to point like Vegas to Reno, because the challenge is how long do you keep people out there, right?
Yeah.
So we have the
well, I know you guys got teams and crew, and it's like, okay, like you're gonna stay here till 11 o'clock at night for like 2 guys that are still on their way. Like I get it, but it makes you wonder like what would happen if it all got flipped.
Well, what's wild about it though too is we have an amazing group of volunteers and staff and everything, and they like it.
They like what?
They like staying out there.
Oh, yeah.
So it's funny because like there's people on our team that I'm like, hey, I need to send you to the middle of nowhere, and they're like, that's cool. I'm in, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, awesome, and they're having a blast, and dude, truthfully, it is one of the best seats, if not the best seat in the house when you're out doing a checkpoint as a volunteer. Or or a pit or whatever, because you're gonna see stuff that nobody else gets to see, right?
100%.
And in a lot of cases, you're seeing the cars at full clip, whereas a lot of remote spectating areas are near pits, and they're coming and they're slowing down because they're gonna pit, right?
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting opportunity for people to have an experience that's like unique, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's like, as I think about it, it's like, oh, like what happened if you would like send all the slow cars out first? But it's like, if you're in a freaking bug, you don't want 30 trophy trucks running up your ass.
No.
Like that's not going to go well.
That's the challenge, those closing speeds, right?
Yeah, as I'm saying it out loud, is like, yeah, at the Mint, it was a lap race. So yeah, we basically got to see a little bit of everything.
Right.
However, it wasn't, I keep forgetting there was the 2 days.
Yes.
Right. So we were only dealing with, the slow trucks and the medium UTVs.
Yeah.
And not trophies.
That was the challenge in the first years we were doing, is one day everybody's out on course at once, and then when the BLM allowed us to do 2 days of racing, it made it much better for each class, right? Because we want everybody to go out and have a good experience, right?
I thought it was fantastic the way that worked out, because I mean, like having 200 vehicles on a 100-mile lap, course is pretty nuts when you think about it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of vehicles.
Yeah. So what has been, the cultures of drifting and off-road are similar and they're different.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like what's been the kind of the biggest surprise to you?
With the off-road side, you're saying? So, I mean, what
or difference, or
I mean, everyone is pretty cool, right? We haven't really gotten into too many of those scenarios where you're leaning on other teams for help, because it is very separate, whereas like in drifting, like everyone's like shoulder to shoulder, right? And so it's like if you forgot something, you can like cruise over to so and so's pit and be like, hey, you got this tool, and they let you borrow it and you use it, whatever. But in off-road is like, since it is so spread out, I noticed that like that doesn't seem to happen as much. However, I haven't really been snubbed by anybody if we like walked over and asked them a question or for something, if we're chasing and we're waiting for the truck to come up, and so that part is pretty rad. And everyone's been very, very welcoming to us, like going out there and racing with them, and which I find very cool, because we don't really have any like miles, so to speak, in off-road, right? We're definitely very new to it, and trying to come in and expand Nissan Nismo's presence into off-road, and so it's a learning curve for us, and we have like a 50% finish rate at this point, so which is still great. But yeah, I mean, for us, the biggest thing is the organizations are very, very cool, like yourself and the other organizations that we've run with. Like everyone's very like kind of down to earth and understanding. They know that we're new at this and we're gonna forget some things, and basically being willing and open arm to like, hey, like let me kind of, steer you in the right direction, so like it's definitely been very like welcoming is the right word.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Has there anything that you've seen or that you've experienced that surprised you?
I mean, every minute of being out there, it's the one thing, like I said, like on that last race, the most frustrating thing for us was like we are, starting on time. We're carrying what we feel like is the best pace that this vehicle can do. We have other vehicles around us. We're not like, pulling up last and and like chasing the timer, right? Chasing the clock. Like it happened to us, like I said, at Vegas to Reno. We were having an issue, but it was like we basically had 30 minutes.
Right.
Like I was saying, like to make that fix. And they're like pit 2, they're like, they come over and they do the quick math. They're like, hey, pit 2 is closing in an hour. You're not going to make it. We're just like, well, fuck. Well, what do we do? And they're like, skip 2, go to 3. And we're just like, already? Like, we're already doing this, And so we're like, like, we're 80 miles into this race and we're already timing out. And like I said, the same thing happened in Nora. So we missed the start of stage 2. And, myself and the other guy that was in our class we were like maybe 10 minutes ahead of him in the first section alone. So we're like feeling really good about our pace and truck's doing solid. And yeah, they're like, start, second start's already closed, go to 3. And I was like, so that's like the one thing that's a little aggravating, but that's just the inherent nature of our class. So there's not really much that can be done about it other than pick up the pace.
Well, yeah, but it's tough. I think those are calls we have to make as promoters as we see the entries, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, man, there's a bunch of Class 11s that are coming to this race.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to have to extend pit times to get those guys through.
Yeah.
And those are always calls we do make, right,
Mm-hmm.
based on the entries. But
yeah, that's like the only thing that was like, I would say surprising because, here we are like, of course, like there's always a surprise of like something breaks and, there's, a car flipped over and there's a car on fire. Like those are, kind of like the surprises you mentally like think you're going to see. And then you do, when you get out there, like, I mean, Vegas to Reno, we were 20 miles in, there's a UTV completely burning to the ground. We're just like, fuck, like, that's a real thing. And everyone was okay. They're out of the truck and they're, waving and waiting for a fire truck. That thing was just, 10-foot high flames.
Oh yeah.
And so that to me was like maybe less surprising than like the timing out of stuff, or like I didn't expect that to happen. I'm just like, we got to figure this out. We can't be like pulling up the races with like our best effort and not even being able to make it. So that's like the one thing we need to put a little effort on, is to try and make sure we have good pace and no issues, especially in those first couple miles, because you have to get like that. You got to get those miles under your belt so that if you do have an issue, you're kind of further along. But like if you're like having an issue in the first 50, then you're just chasing the time the rest of the way, and you're not going to make it.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, so now you've had these race experiences, and coming off a class win and a really strong finish at the Mint, which let me ask you about that, because for a guy who is putting everything together yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you're bringing Nissan, you're bringing your other partners over,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, hey, we think this is a good, this is a good thing. This is a good way to develop product,
Mm-hmm.
good media value, all this kind of stuff. And you're bringing your audience over
Mm-hmm.
and giving them a taste of this, and you arguably finished the most difficult race in North America, right? And on a vehicle that you built.
Mm-hmm.
What's that feel like for you?
I mean, that was a really amazing one. We really needed that because we kind of were getting, we're getting our asses kicked on the past couple races. And, XComp really stepped up this year and invested into the program. And we're doing 4 races with them this year. And so the past, we did 2 races last year and 1 race per year the previous 2. So 1 in 23, 1 in 24, 2 in 25. And now we're doing 4. So we're like, we really got to like step our game up and not have these stupid failures. We got to get some more ground clearance. We got to replace a couple of components that we think aren't, strong enough. And yeah, and then we get the XCOM 37s on there, and that kind of got the truck up a little bit higher. And yeah, so just going out and doing that first race was, it was just super important. We just got to the finish without blowing this truck in half. And so, and we were able to do that. All the things that we learned on the truck over the years, like you were saying, and going back, because even like the drift cars, like it's fundamentally the same car for the past couple of years, but we still take them down to the frame. And the biggest thing that we learned is that with the drift cars, we'll basically take them down to the frame and rebuild them in the off season, and like, maybe little tweaks throughout the year. And we kind of go through and check for cracks and fix things. And in off-road, you're doing that every race. So every race is basically like a season on a vehicle. And that's what we're learning. It's like all new hardware, taking everything off and inspecting the whole truck. And we weren't, I thought we were doing that enough in those first races, which is why like we had that great success with the first race. The truck was fresh, it was new, all the hardware was new, and so on and so forth. And we went out and we went all 500. And that was awesome. And it's funny because like we look back at that and we're like, we had no business taking that brand new truck, paint still wet on it, no test time, straight to Mexico, and finished every race mile. And then just having issues in the next couple races after that. And, that was just everything, just like the stars aligned for that thing to come together. The Forsberg Edition Frontier coming out, and it was fantastic. And then we're just kind of chasing our tails after that. But I think, like we're to our point, we weren't respecting it enough, right? As in, like, really going through the truck before the next races. And that's what we learned in the past couple is we would have those failures. Like we had an electrical wire short out in ground, and it killed our transmission. In the second race that we did, we got it fixed. We finished the race, but we missed the first day at Nora. We only did like maybe 90 miles on the day one, but then we got together and we finished day two. We cracked the radiator on day two because, once again, ground clearance, rad was up in the front. It's in the back now. So just all those little things we kind of learned over the course of the our entries, I guess you could say. I meant to say season, but that was one race a year. And so, but yeah, the biggest thing that I learned, especially with like talking with more of the teams and like hanging out with 48 and things like that. And like, yes, I understand, like, that's a trophy. It's a whole different animal, but still just the mindset of like, no, like you have to go through top to bottom. Essentially, like what we do with our cars in the off season, you have to do after every race. And so, and once we did that, we really gave it the effort coming into Mint. Like, once again, 0 issues, not a single one.
Yeah, it's interesting because prepping off-road prepping off-road if I could say
you got it. Prep.
Yeah, prepping off-road race vehicles is an absolute art.
It is.
And if you can find a guy, a crew chief that's good at that, and he'll ride, that's like that's like the miracle.
Yeah.
Right? That's like the golden child, right?
And so that's what I'm saying is like, so we obviously like can build a vehicle and we can finish with it, but it was our ignorance of just how much the truck needs after a race.
Right.
So like, we built that first truck, went out, did the miles, and then we just like had like all these little micro failures in those next 2 races. And so because we didn't like go in deep enough. So after learning that, we're like, that's it, full, reset button on this truck. We had the engine out, never even took the engine out of that truck up until this past winter. So we took the whole motor out, went through the trans tunnel, checking all the wires on the engine harness. We relocated the ECU. We did like all kinds of reinforcement and really, really spent a lot of time on the wiring of the truck because it is all still factory wiring. And on all of our other vehicles, you have like the motorsport chassis harness, motorsport engine harness, and you can via like on the Motex, you can see where there's like potential failures, like too much amperage draw. And since we're in this production class, we're fighting, CAN signals, we're fighting the automatic transmission signals and like ABS sensors and like just all that stuff that makes the car go. And, we're just like basically like beating our head against the wall of like, what is like practically causing all of our headache in this is what is inherently class 7. And so it's like running all of the factory components. And so trying to modify a truck to this extent, but having, thousands of wires, still happy. And, so we had to get like very special billet hubs for the rear so that the tone rings, CJD makes them. So we had to get CJD rear hubs that have the Nissan ABS tone rings so that the transmission will be able to shift, because if we just didn't have that, if we just put a full Curry floater in the back, the car wouldn't go into gear.
It'd freak out.
Yeah. And so like those are things we're learning because we lost an ABS wire and the transmission was malfunctioning. So those are little things that make it more difficult for us in that regard versus just like tube chassis, throw a big block in it, drop it in gear and go. Of course, there's a lot more to it. I understand that, when it comes to like a spec trophy, for example, but they're very, very archaic, right? It's a very simple truck. It's just like how we build our drift cars. Right. We eliminate as much as we possibly can. We put a 4-speed, transmission in there. We put a Winters out back, and you just rock crush that thing through the gears. But this thing is like, it's very delicate. You got to make sure everything's happy or it's not going to move.
No, it's very true. I mean, it's the dichotomy of, a vehicle that's built specifically for racing or racing a production vehicle.
Yeah.
And as production vehicles have gotten more complicated and have more sensors and electronics in it, it's gotten more and more difficult, right? So, but I still think it's extremely cool and valuable because you in particular have had a pretty long relationship with Nissan.
Yeah, since 2003.
And so for you to be the Nissan guy in drifting and then carry that over into off-road, I think is really cool and very commendable, right? Because what we want is we always want to we want people to come and have fun, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But we want to draw a correlation back into street products, right?
100%.
We want a kid going to a dealership going, I want to be Chris Forsberg, right? and buying that edition truck, right?
Yeah. And that's what we've been doing, in drifting for the past 20 years is drawing that correlation of brands to products that are on the vehicles, vehicles that we're building and racing.
100%. I think you guys as a motorsport more than anybody have done that, right? And it's funny because I get in these conversations with, different brands and, people at SEMA, and they're like, well, how are we going to get kids motivated to even care about driving cars? And I'm like, motorsports.
Yeah, 100%.
Like this is it.
You got to make it cool.
The solution has been there, right? It's like for me as a kid, we're both from the Midwest. Like I'm older than you, so my influence was seeing, Wide World of Sports.
Yeah.
Right? Back in the day and being like, oh, this is the coolest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
And then fortunately, I ended up moving to California and being dropped into El Cajon. And I'm like, this is like literally the holy grail of off-road. And
that was like me when I came to California. I didn't even know what I was chasing after. Formula Drift didn't even exist.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Like, I want people to understand that. Like, I always use stupid analogies, but I remember seeing, I think it was the BMX movie, Rad, right? Where it's like, he builds his bike and then goes out, wins the big race.
Goes out to Hell Track.
Yeah, goes out to Hell Track. And then, he gets the hot chick and, it's like the Point Break formula, right?
Yeah.
But I think as young males, we're kind of programmed. And I think that, especially being from the Midwest, I always look to California as that's where everything cool is happening.
Yep.
And then when you get here, when I got here as a kid, it was way bigger and better than I even understood.
100%. And so my draw to California started, so it was summer of 2003, and they were doing, we were obviously into drifting, had been into drifting since like 2000, and we just started running our events at Englishtown, Club Loose, and that's a funny story in itself of marketing, where we went out, basically myself, Tony Angelo, Matt Petty, a couple guys, went out to Englishtown, met with Mike Knapp, and I'm out in the parking lot setting up a track so I can show him what drifting is. And Tony and Matt were in the office talking to him. Like, they didn't even call. We just showed up. And so, and it was basically to ask if we could run events there. And so he basically says, like, yep, I already know what drifting is. I want to do something. Like, you guys are the guys. Like, right place, right time. And so we just used the rest of the afternoon to film ourselves drifting in the parking lot, and we edited to Black Sabbath. We put it online, And Vaughn Gittin Jr. and Ryan Turk saw that video, and they came out to our event, and that's how we all met, and that's how like their, drifting kind of expanded, because they were just like, Vaughn's just kind of screwing around down Maryland, Turk's screwing around up in New Hampshire, and it was like this central location for us all. And so drifting is growing. We're holding events once a month in California. They're starting to do more events. Like Falcon had like a drift show off and in the parking lot at Irwindale. And then there was this big talk about this D1 driver search. And we all knew about D1. It was in Japan.
Yeah.
And so they're coming to the States. They're going to have a D1 event in the States, and they're looking for drivers. And so Tony and I, we put our cars onto a flatbed, and we drove to California. And we get out here, we get to Irwindale, and same thing. Like, we had no idea like what we were getting ourselves into. And we show up, and Wired magazine, of all things, was covering our trip. I don't even know how that happened, but yeah, like there's a Wired magazine article from 2003 that like talks about drifting and our attempt at the D1 driver search. It's really funny. And so we get out there, and it's like you see the easy ups, you see all the different cars, they all got stickers on them, and we just have these like 2 stock bodied, RX-7s. We're just like, huh, like, okay, like I see how it is, and like it just seemed like much bigger than it was, right, at the time. Because you don't recognize people. You see different types of builds you've never seen before. Like all of our cars are pretty similar. It's like a bunch of stock Supras and RX-7s and 240s. And like these guys have like bright paint jobs, logos, like cool wheels. And we're just like, oh, fuck, okay. And we do that.
These were the Japanese guys who came up.
No, these are the California kids.
Okay, yeah.
And like, you kind of see some photos of them online, but to just have them all together in the track and you're there live, it's like, oh, wow, okay, like I get it. And we do the event. Neither of us make it past the first round. And so we're like on our way back home, and just like the whole time, just like we're selling these cars, we're getting new cars, I was gonna get like a Nissan S14, and he was working on getting like some sort of Lexus, and we're like, we gotta get newer, better, flashier cars, because like, we were like the only RX-7s there too. Like this, it wasn't really a popular car. They didn't make steering angle, and there were no steering angle kits. We used to make our own steering angle kits like in 06. Like they didn't exist at the time. And so now you can just like cookie cutter a full, LS swap, bolt on, quick change package, and just like build yourself a pro spec car, like, just ordering online. It's crazy. And, just like you were saying with like the trophy trucks, you just have to build yourself an off-road vehicle from scratch. And then now you can just like, order one.
Yeah.
And so, but, to that point, driving back across the country, and this was like my first lesson in marketing that I didn't even know I was doing at the time, but it was like subconscious. Basically, the Z was just coming back to market, right? So 2003 summer, the Nissan Z was coming back. It had been gone for 5 years. And I was just like, man, like that would be cool, right? That'd be cool to like, drive one of those. I bet like I'd get a lot of attention with that. And so I sold my car, signed myself up for like $350 monthly payments on this thing, which was like, looking back, that's pretty cheap. But I remember it was like, yeah, like under like $400 a month to like finance this car. And I was like, I can afford that. I can do that. Right. And so I get this brand new car, and I do some modifications to it, pack it up on a trailer, and just my sights were set on, there was another Falcon Drift show off in October. And so I was like, get out there, going back to Irwindale, gonna do this Falcon Drift show off, and just kind of see how it goes. So I just packed everything up, put it in a truck, drove to California, one-way mentality, and just kind of like gonna go figure it out. Gonna go out there and do this event, see how it goes, try and find a job. And the Signal Auto team, who were Japanese drivers, like drift demonstrators, they were doing a tour with BF Goodrich in 03. And so they actually came through our event, and they did a demonstration in September, right before I was driving out to California. And so I'm there with my new Z, got a body kit on it, wheels, and, I'm like going for that California look, like, clean paint, like proper body kit, lowered, nice wheels. And I was like, got to fit the mold, right? Got to,
Right.
dress the part, right? And, so we do that event, and, we're just like hanging out and having conversation. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm like, I knew they were based in SoCal. And I'm like, yeah, I'm heading to California next week. Going to go to Falcon Drift show off. They're like, hit us up when you get there. And I was like, okay. And so drove out, did the event, finished 5th overall. Like Daijiro's there, and like a bunch of other guys are all on the scene now. They're all there, and go meet up with them, and they're basically like, hey, like love the car, love the look, the whole thing. We're looking to like kind of grow our drift program. We wanted to have you like a part of the team, and so I was able to get on with BF Goodrich because they had that, so I was able to now get tires, and then Tanabe USA. That was like my first real sponsor. They were like one of the primary partners of their drift team, Signal Auto. And so their shop was over in Torrance. And so we took my Z over there, and basically like they're using it to, like fit parts onto, design an exhaust and suspension and stuff onto it. So because I had this new chassis, companies were interested because they were able to R&D parts onto it. And so that's how I was able to get support. And I ran that off season like that, and had, some free tires flowing in from BFG, which was great. And then it all kind of, we go to SEMA. I'm doing a drift demo with them out at SEMA. Forma Drift announces their new championship for next year. And it's basically like, hey guys, like, let's, work this out. And a couple months go by, and they're basically like, hey, like, we don't have the funding to do that. And so I was like, fuck, like here I am, like fully invested, like this car that I'm making payments on. I'm like, gutted it. It's got a roll cage in it, I'm getting it all ready for Formula D, and now I don't have a partner. And so I was able to work out a deal with MotorX, for those that remember that brand. They had a Nissan Z as well, a new one that they got through Nissan, right? It was actually, they had a small partnership with them because they were the GTR importers, so they knew the Nissan team. Nissan used to be based in Torrance out here. And so basically I linked up with them because I was the only other Z that was like in the space. And so went over to their spot. They introed me to the Nissan guys, and they started like flowing me some parts that gave me like headlights, taillights out of the crashed up media cars,
right.
like the journalist cars.
Right.
So I was able to like get components off of the cars that were about to go to crush, right? And so like, like an extra control arm or an extra this or that, and that's where my relationship with Nissan started, was because of that. And so that was back in like the beginning of 2004.
Yeah, it's funny. So those early Falcon shows, that was a big part of that was Nick Fusakis.
Right? Oh yeah, I was hanging out with him last night.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, he was out at the racer deal. Cool. And we're just chatting, and like he was there, Joyce was there, Mickey Andrade was there, and we're just like Jay Brad, and we're just like got the old gang back together.
Funny parallel. Nick went to high school with me.
No way.
At Helix. So
he did tell me to tell you hello.
Yeah, right on.
So there you go.
He's a great dude. But so then fast forward to where we're at now. Like, what do you want to do in off road? Like, what's the goal?
I know it's interesting because and just real quick to go back to that Falcon deal because I wanted to touch on this. So with Drift Alliance, like we were saying, with like how we're like this group, and we're able to like kind of move mountains because of the group of us, instead of just like
sure.
standing on your own. Definitely got to give it to Falcon for they put a seal of approval on Drift Alliance when they brought all of us on in 2005.
Right.
So 2004 season, we're all kind of like on our own. Vaughn was over there on Falcon, and I was running with MotorX. Tony was doing his deal, and Hampton was doing his deal. And then they basically, Falcon was like, hey, like we want the whole DA team. And that was like a really cool thing that we didn't really know how much power that had until like looking back at it now 20 years later, where like they were like, what you guys are doing is awesome, and we want all 4 of you. It's like all or nothing.
I was thinking about this last night because I was thinking about questions, and I'm like, really what Drift Alliance was like Dogtown, right, for drifting.
Mm-hmm.
Right, especially because where you guys came from, like, as drifting was building here, and you had guys like some of the early guys like Sam and Tanner and
and Reese,
and Reese and all that kind of stuff. Like, and here are these scrappy kids from the East Coast that everybody's like, what? So it was really cool.
Yeah. And, and hats off to them. We learned a lot from them, and we kind of talked about this when it was like the first time we all got to really sit together over the years, me, Vaughn, and Turk up at race service at the night school. And we got to kind of rehash a lot of these old stories and, the validity that Falcon gave us when they put us all in the team together. And that was the first time they ever had the blue and teal stripes.
Yeah.
So that was like a big moment. So all of a sudden, like, we're all on Falcon, we got the big rig, and all of our cars have the scallops. And we're just like, whoa, like this is a thing. And then moving on from that, oh God, I had a point to that. I forget.
We were talking about future stuff, and then you went back to that.
I went back to that, yeah. But yeah, basically just to say that, yeah, when we were talking about these like moments and like how we kind of helped shape the career with drifting, and how Falcon gave us a lot of validity with that, and then we kind of I was saying I'm looking up to Reese, Tanner, and Sam, because like so we in those early years it was like we're like, I can't believe we're doing this, and we're kind of like definitely taking it to like the party mentality of like, I mean, like we're showing up and we're putting it on the box, but then we're just like fucking like feeling like rock stars the whole time, and just like partying at the hotels and everything else. We're like, we can't fucking believe we're doing this, and but still showing up on track and like winning, like almost winning championships. And then it was around that like 07, 08 when it was like, so we're about 4 years in. Reese, Tanner, and Sam have been like winning the championships, all those years, and it's like they got heavy support from either manufacturers or from big brands, and they got the nice rigs, and we're just like, wow, like okay, like we kind of gotta like clean our act up a little bit, and like maybe just a quanch, and so going into 07, I lost my Falcon ride, and I had to like kind of figure it out, and so I had like no primary sponsor, and like just kind of running thin, and so we kind of like I basically like turned back the like, this is all fun and games, and like we gotta put up or we're gonna be pushed out. And we went toe to toe with Tanner all year, and we were second place to him at the very end in 07, and then and that landed me. I was already on NOS in 06 was my first year with NOS, and then going into 07 they were still there, and then after that like championship run, they came on as primary, and so I went into 08. Now I had the big rig and had the primary partner. We go out to Long Beach, we win the freaking event, and it was just like, we're freaking back, baby, and so that was like a very pivotal moment for me, to be like, hey, this is a business, this isn't just fun and games.
Yeah, it was interesting because that was right in the air. We were still doing a lot of work with Ken, and he, one thing I always say about Ken, he's very, very intelligent business person, right?
Oh yeah.
And was good at tying marketing to business, right? And in a way that I think a lot of people just missed, right? Because you usually have the business guy, and then you'd have the marketing guy, and there'd always be this kind of disconnect, right? And usually different departments.
Yeah.
But
that was a big talking point last night as well.
Yeah.
It's like, and to part of our conversation earlier is like having the right person with the brand, and having the right person representing the brand, and them having the ability to communicate appropriately on what needs to happen, and trusting each other to do the job right.
And, but to that point where you realize like, either I can do this as a kid who's like partying every night, or this is a business and I'm going to make a career and a life out of this, right? And like, it was cool to see you go through that transition, obviously Vaughn as well, because there was it was funny because there was a lot of animosity towards Gymkhana in the beginning, because especially with Tanner, Sam, and Reese, because they all knew me, and I think it was Tanner. It was either pretty sure it was Tanner who gave us the location.
Yeah.
And then when it came out, it was like, why didn't you call me to do this, right? With a lot of those guys, and I'm like, hey, Ken financed.
He did it. Yeah.
Like, he built the car. Like, he was taking crazy ideas and implementing them. Not like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. It was like, no, we're gonna have Kurt Crawford build a car for us, and he wrote the check for that and made that part of it happen. We did the content part of it, but the business part of it, that transition, I was really stoked to see it, because what it did too is it that was also a pivotal point for drifting in Formula D,
Mm-hmm.
because it solidified the character and competitor set.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw this change, and it
Mm-hmm.
was very interesting because I was somewhat jealous of it, because I'm like, they only have this many guys, and they're having this huge effect,
Yeah,
and they're selling this many, they're doing all this, and this is all they have.
I know.
I'm like, we have 554 teams out there, like
There's 30 of us out
you
there.
know what I mean? So, but it was a really cool thing to see, all of you guys go through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so yeah, with that, yeah, just like that mentality flip, like it happened in 07 because it was like, freaking backed up against the wall, like literally ran that season off of contingency. Like I didn't have enough money to make it to like round 3, but like we, put the car in the trailer and we headed for Atlanta, and it's just like, here we go. It's all or nothing, and we won the event. And, we got $5,000 from FD. We got $5,000 from Maxis. And I was like, we just made $10,000. I was like, we can keep going.
Right.
Like that's like serious money, especially back then. And so, and we literally like funded our whole year off of like getting on the box. And so, that was, like I said, that was like the mentality of like, and not that, like I didn't have successful years leading up to that. We had our first wins, we had our first podiums. Like we went 3rd overall in the championship year 1. We podiumed round 1 ever of FD, went all the way to the finals with Sam. And so definitely had some successes there, but it was still just like, this is fun. And like, we're just kind of fucking off in between events. There was only 4 events a year, and there was no internet. There was no content. It was just like, screwing around. And now it's like, okay, we have like, now we have rigs, now we have employees, and now we have, like more events to go to. We have to like manage things in between the events. It's not just like, change the tires and see you in 6 weeks. So, yeah, and then it became, like I said, more of a business, more of an operation. And then we're able to continue to take that energy in the next year. In 09 was when we won our first championship. And that was like a big shift in the drifting space, because, yeah, like we're saying, like Reese, Tanner, and Sam, they had all, 5 championships between the 3 of them leading up to that. And when I won in 09, it was the first time that a drift-oriented driver, or basically like a driver that came specifically from drifting, not like other professional motorsport background, won that championship in FD.
Yeah,
So.
which was cool. That was kind of the evolution of like kind of the modern era of what we have now, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So that was really cool. So then you having this long relationship with Nissan, like going forward in off-road racing now, you're going to make parts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have the Forsberg edition, like talk about what the future holds.
So, yeah, it's like, I don't really know, to be honest. Like I really enjoy running the Frontier in Class 7. Would love to expand on that, but obviously you're moving away from production style racing, which is what they are focused on, right? Because, just like what Ford is doing, Ford is like very, very invested, as you all know, in the off-road space. And so, their platform is very, very good. They're putting a lot of vehicles on the track. They're sponsoring the events. And so, we're basically using that as like a model to show Nissan to be like, hey, like, look what motorsports is doing for that brand, right? And you go to any off-road event, and like you cross the border and you're heading down to Mexico for a race, and it's just like Raptor, 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 just flying down the highway. It's hilarious. They just kind of like came in and dominated that entire market.
Yeah.
And like even like GM and Ram like can't touch it with their vehicles that they have.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because this relationship between off-road racing and racers and race development and factories, Ford is doing an excellent job of it, but Toyota's starting to pay attention, starting to do more too. And I think in a lot of cases, it is what it takes in the beginning is for somebody to give, Nissan a major victory. Like, I mean, like you won your class, you didn't win overall, but you won. You won the mint in your class, right? Which getting to the finish line,
it's the only Nissan there,
right?
554 entries, like you said, the only Nissan.
Which was the first time that's happened since the mint shut down, decades ago, right? Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
It's wild.
Pretty cool historical moment.
No, I know. It was definitely like when I heard that was like incredible. And so, I mean, with that said, yeah. So And then the first Frontier, 'cause Frontier didn't even exist back then.
Correct.
It was a hard body.
And in the Frontier, like when it came out, it was a really, really good vehicle, you know, and you know, I think there's a lot of room for them in racing and overlanding and off-roading in general. So, you know, but
it's a fantastic truck. I mean, it's the only V6 in class, you know, so there's a lot of, you know, benefits to it over the other, you know, manufacturers. But yeah, I mean, you know, we've been waving the Nissan flag, you know, for over 20 years, and we've won more championships for Nissan in the past 20 years than any other driver in the world.
Crazy.
You know?
That's really cool, though.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Someone told me that stat, and I didn't even like realize it. They're like crazy.
The context. That's one thing I've learned, you know, as a way to communicate with people is to continually put things in context, right? And go like, listen, you got to understand, like, just you know, a stock Nissan finishing the mint hasn't happened in you know 2-3 decades, right?
And it's like I think we just lose context of time, honestly.
Sure.
Like it just like goes by like that. Like, you know, 20 years of like, you know, have gone by of, you know, I remember like, you know, being at you know, the score races, and you got Carl Rennezener out there, and they had that whole Nissan program, and you know, they run the Pro 2, the Pro 4, the Pro Light, and it was just like the, you know, big tent, big awning. And I mean, it feels like it was yesterday, but that was 15 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, it was actually after Carl coming in. His son started racing short course again, so he's back engaged a bit. But yeah, it's interesting because when you look at, you know, I'm just like you. I'm sure I'm always hyper analyzing everything, right? And when you look at brands and like what their products are, to me, it's very simple. Like we race trucks, right? And that's our value. Is it sells mid-sized trucks, full-size trucks. Like the reason people look at a truck and say, "Hey, yeah, it's durable," is because of off-road racing, 100%. Right? And it's an interesting thing to look at, like where brands choose to spend their money in motorsports, and go like I'm always baffled with some versions of pavement racing that have no coverage, no spectators, yet they're still investing money into it because they're like, well, we make sedans, or whatever, right? Like whatever the rationale is, yet they don't, you know, go heavy into off-road racing. And one thing I try and continuously explain to, you know, head marketing guys, I'm like, it's not just about the racing; it's about what's in the parking lot, and that this racing is the cultural spearhead of the entire off-road culture, right?
Yeah. And you know, when you say it that way, like what's in the parking lot, you go to a drift event like an FD, and the parking lot is like its own car show. It's insane.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about that is, you know, yet again, like Nissan doesn't really get represented very well on the track outside of my program. Like we're the only current model Nissan out there, and especially with a Nissan engine in it. Most of them have, you know, LSs and whatnot. And to the point of, you go out and look in the parking lot, and a large percentage of the cars are Nissans, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, 240s, you got GTRs and all of that. And so there's a huge fan base for the brand, and, you know, we are actively the only team that are representing them in current models in multiple disciplines.
Yeah. No, and that's extremely powerful. You know, the thing I would say too, to even underline that, is that, you know, when you think about your acquisition cost as a car manufacturer,
oh yeah,
right? Like, where do you need to start? Like, where is the optimum year that you need to start? My guess would be 13, 14 years old, right? When you're getting into the like, hey, I'm going to get a car at some point. What is that car going to be? And then the path to the fantasy car, right? Because me, when I was a kid growing up, you know, and being in the Midwest, it was like, you want a Corvette, right? That's the coolest thing on the planet at the time, right? Now I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I don't mean it's cool, but like, it's not my style anymore. Like, I'm a truck guy, right? To me, I'm like, you know, somebody said, here's whatever amount of money. The first thing I would go and do is go buy a pre-runner, right?
Yeah.
So, it's just interesting because to me that seems so logical, and you guys represent that younger demographic, because to me it's very simple. You walk around an FD event and you see all these kids lined up, and the age demo and the different cultural demographic and everything.
We have a very young age demo. It's great.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. We were out filming the FD in Jersey, and it's in a weird like location, and I was like, and then there's weather and everything. And I was like, I'll see how this goes.
Yeah,
packed,
absolutely packed.
And one of my clearest memories of that day of filming, those 2 days of filming, is the kids walking out of there with the shredded tires.
Yeah, they love it.
I'm like, what are you gonna do with that, right? Some mom is gonna be so pissed
having a stinky tire in the back of the van all the way home.
but if you think about the power of that, that's proof of the power that you just gave them something so visceral that they're taking home a piece of trash as a commemorative trophy.
And that's the thing, like we're creating these like memories, right? And it's more than just like the physical experience. It's like like the physical take home, right? And so not just to say like, hey, take our old tires, but it's like they are that captivated by what they just witnessed that they're just like, I need something to take home. And so like, anytime I see a little kid cruising by the pit, I go give them stickers, right? Like we sell stickers and like, merch and shirts and all the things, but like, you see like someone's like under 10 walking by and just like, hey bud, come here, give him a sticker, and he's just stoked. Makes his day.
Build for the future.
And yeah, with that, it's like, we're always trying to, like you said, reach the next generation, right? The next set of drivers or car builders, owners, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, like you said, 13, 14 is like probably like the absolute year, because you're starting to get into cars. When I got into cars, I taught myself how to drive stick when I was 14. And my friends all had Hondas, and I was like, yeah, these are cool, but like I don't really want a Honda, and like I ended up in a Mazda. But just because I knew I wanted something that like had a turbo and was rear wheel drive. I didn't really know much else. I was about to buy a 240, and then and it was Tony who he had an RX-7. He was like, no, you should get one of these. I was like, okay. So I ended up in that for a couple of years, and then got into the Nissan.
That's rad.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool. I mean, again, like I was stoked when you started crossover, because what I've always explained to really the drift guys, but also like drifting has a little bit older age limit on it than like action sports, right? And action sports is pretty harsh. It's like, oh, you're 30, like
you gotta hang it up,
right? and so like that was part of the moto guys like Deegan and Twitch. Is I was always going like, hey, you can walk your whole audience over to this and have a career over here, and extend it, because you can be 60 and competitive here, right?
With age comes a cage.
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at guys like Larry Rossler and even Larry Ragland, recently, they're up there, and they're with the proper equipment, they're still kicking everybody's butt.
Oh yeah, cool. Because there is still a lot of wisdom that comes in drifting and off-road. It's not just like physical endurance, right? Of course, there is an aspect of physical endurance, but like, you can be 60 years old and manhandle a trophy truck, no problem. They're fast and cushy enough where it's not like you're getting like completely thrown into the elements as far as like heat exhaustion and stuff like that. Like, they have means to keep the body cool. There's technologies in that now, and in drifting, it's like we've said it time and time again. Like, you got guys that are like 50 plus, and they can definitely send a teenager home, but to that extent now we have a couple teenagers that are absolute shredders because they come from the sim world. And so we got a couple guys that are 14, 15, 16 years old, and they can just absolutely mob the track. And so that's really cool, because yet again, with the technology of sim racing and drifting and such, you have endless seat time, endless. And so it's I wonder, I haven't really like looked into it or talked to anyone about it, but like, does that play into off-roading at all?
We haven't seen it that much, only because there hasn't been widely adapted sim platforms. It's something that we're interested in fostering it, because both my brother and I understand the parallel between the gaming and sim world, and those two things are different, but they're parallel, right? And then the real world of off-road racing, right? And we see a future where those things are connected. It just has
at some point.
Yeah, it has to be on the right platform, right? Like there's a few different things floating around, but they're not connected. And honestly, like we had a little bit of victory with dirt,
Mm-hmm.
and they put some trucks in, but it's a video game. It's
Yeah.
not a simulator.
It's more arcade, yeah.
Yeah, but I see a big opportunity for that in the future. What has affected us, which is bitching, is youth racing, and starting with trophy carts and now UTVs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's bonkers to think about is like, I think Sam Berry this year was the oldest racer, and I can't remember where he's. I think he's in his 70s, right? And then we have 6-year-olds racing with us. So to think about that spread, right?
In the same class?
No.
Oh, okay.
We have youth racing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like,
I was like,
basically,
oh my God.
basically, you guys launch,
Yeah.
and then we run youth on like a little course right in front of everybody.
Cool.
So then, like, you can start your child racing with us at 6 years old.
Wow.
And well, we've had the first wave of those kids. So like Mitch Guthrie Jr., R.J. Anderson, his brother, a handful of guys have just hit their 20s to mid 20s. Brock Hager,
Mm-hmm.
and like what's bonkers about it is like they're so good because they started racing at 6,
Mm-hmm.
so then they have all that seat time.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, who's the kid? And I'm like, hey, that kid's won a bunch of championships
It's
already.
gonna shred.
Yeah, he's gonna be fast as shit. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So that has affected us more than simulators.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because like there probably will be a time where the technology is good enough where you can build a replica course on a sim.
What?
But the thing like we're talking about is like the course changes,
Yeah.
right? Like even in pre-running, from when the course gets dropped to when the race starts, like the course will change because people are rutting it out.
Yeah.
So every bump and everything is not going to be represented well, but the path, and that's a lot of programming. That's a lot of miles because you're not just building a short course that you're running laps on.
But I mean, with the AI, we should be able to address that, right?
Eventually,
like that's been one of the coolest things for me from the promoter side is being a cheerleader for technology, and good and bad things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of like, oh, that just skyrocketed the cost, right?
Yeah.
And then, or vice versa, or it lowered the cost, right? So like, I'll use Starlink as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Now
Yeah.
we can stream from every vehicle.
Yeah.
New problem that just cost me a whole bunch of money.
Yep.
Is we're getting 150 streams in to the biggest TV production truck on the West Coast, which was only ever designed to handle like 30 streams at a time. Because
Oh my God.
what sporting event is taking in that many streams?
Makes sense.
Right? It's bonkers. So
Yeah.
now we have to have
Never even thought of that.
we have to have a pre-sort, group of guys that are looking at all these screens, then telling the truck, hey, take this one, take this one, take this one.
Oh
and
my
it's a
God.
little bit overwhelming because we're producing one show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we have the ability to show people like what's going on in all these other vehicles. And you can go to those streams, but then deciding like what's worthy, like it just exponentially increased the difficulty of managing that.
Yeah.
But technology in terms of simulators, like I'm very excited and hopeful about how that positively affects us in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I can give somebody the sensation of being in a 1,000 horsepower unlimited truck,
Mm-hmm.
I got them.
Yeah.
It would be the best drug, the easiest drug to sell.
Yeah.
Because it's so like disoriented and bonkers. Have you ridden in a truck yet?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I've ridden in. I went out with Brenthal. I got to drive their spec,
Oh, perfect.
and I got to ride in their 1,000 horsepower all wheel drive. And
awesome.
So yeah, got the whole deal.
So then you
Absolutely just
yeah.
locked in.
So you were probably doing the calculations of like
Oh my
what's
God.
going on, right?
Yeah.
It's so crazy because I tell people you do it, and then you have to like sit and think about what just happened.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's so many variables with the amount of suspension and body roll.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I have a Podium 1 40OF system, so it's got like the 4 big hydraulics, whole motion rig, and like 3 55-inch wraparound monitors.
Badass.
So you're fully locked in.
Right.
And yeah, I was doing like Crandon on that, right? And it's insane, right? So like the whole thing's moving. You get a real good feel of it, and you can definitely do some proper training before you go to a new track. And I've used the sim a couple times to benefit me, right? Like, so about a year or so ago, I was racing in a series called Rush, right? And so it's called a Rush SR. It's a single center, open seat, open cockpit. I mean to say, and basically it's a motorcycle engine, about 150 horsepower, about 1,000 pounds. So it's pretty fast little rig, and it's a spec series.
Right.
I've only driven it like 3 times, right? And so like have very very little wheel to wheel experience, very little like road racing experience, and I get thrown into this like spec racing series, and so hopped in, was like pretty quick right out of the gate, and like feeling pretty good about it, but after like my first test session and my first race, I think we finished like 5th overall in the first race weekend at Lime Rock. I was like, okay, like not bad, right? And so from there, I went back onto my sim, and the next race was Laguna Seca. And so I was like, I love Laguna Seca, such a cool track, and I just want to put some miles down and like get a good feel for the track, and just like play with some settings and like kind of just got a good feel for the Lime. Went on to that next race, and 2 days in a row qualified third within a tenth of a second of first and second. First being the guy that built and designed the cars, second being the current leading champion.
Nice.
And so it was my second wheel-to-wheel race ever. And so I can 100% attribute sim driving in the appropriate setting, used the right way, definitely is a benefit. Because for me, it's like I just hit the ground running, just like absolutely no, and with drifting, like just no concern of car proximity, right? So it actually was a little to my benefit because we're on the same team as the gentleman who designed the cars, right? And so he was basically like, hey, when we go out for qualifying, I'm going to wait till the end. We're going to let everyone kind of get ahead and try and get like some clean air. And I was like, all right, like I'm just going to follow you. So you do the thing. And so like he went out and I went out behind him. And yeah, I was within 1/10 of his time. And he was first and the other guy clicked off a time right between us. So
that's proof right there.
Yeah. And so, and that was only because I was able to put like 100+ laps on the course, back at my house.
Yeah.
Well, at the shop, but you know what I mean. And so, yeah, I could see how the sim definitely translates over. And like I was saying, this one kid, his name is Hiroa. He's a Japanese little teenager. He came over, he was 14, and just absolutely can like wall to wall the car, like almost every time. And he just 100% comes from sim. And so, like, there is 100% a world where the sim drifting and the sim training and like sim road racing, of course, like we know that like road race guys, NASCAR guys, and F1 guys all do it as well. But yeah, with off road, it's still like there's a little bit of that Wild West that's still there because you can't really capture the Baja 1000 on a sim.
It'd be difficult.
Yeah, well, because the course isn't exactly present. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, yeah, you can't correlate it as easily, which is cool. So you guys still have a little bit of that factor of like, oh, you can't just hop on the sim for 3 weeks straight and have the course memorized.
100%. But I think it would definitely help. I mean, to your point of what you're talking about with your race experience, just understanding like what you're getting into and where it's going and just orientation, right?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the
It's a lot.
That's one of the wildest things, and like for people, they just come out and they think the Mint's a funny one because the reality of it is we're just outside of Vegas and we're right off the freeway,
Highway,
right? So we're right off the 15. So it's not like everybody feels
that desolate.
Yeah, like you go to the back section and you're like, where are we, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in between mountains in a valley. But you're like, if you look at an overhead map, you know what I mean? You're like, wow, we're in between 4 freeways, right?
Yeah.
Like this, right?
Yeah.
But it feels like you're, a million miles away. And that throws people, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because then growing up in this and doing racing and pre-running, you start to have this kind of like, I don't know, it's like a geographic computer in your head, right? And you get familiar with the terrain. Like you could literally probably drop me off anywhere in Baja and I could go, okay, within walking 10 miles, I can figure out where I'm at, right?
That's so wild.
and it's just the familiarity with that area. Nevada's somewhat the same, and like where we race in Nevada, in that lower part of Nevada and the area along the border by California. Um, but then you get into some other places. Like I went to Saudi for Dakar the first year it was there because I wanted to see what it was like, and I had a reference point like because we're going along the Red Sea, so I'm like I knew where we were at, but then we get off into these massive canyons and we're like, dude, we could be on Mars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
that's what I was just about to say. Like to me, it is still Mars.
Yeah.
Like because it is still so new for me. But
Sure.
Brian Binkert, like he said the same thing when we were down there. He's like, oh yeah, like I can pretty much like just map myself around down here without GPS. It's like, Jesus Christ. But like you think about it, like we were talking about earlier, like there was a time when there was no GPS, and like that's really really cool.
Well, and Brian especially because being a photographer filmer, you're going in, so you're covering a lot of the chase roads, and you have to understand timing of the races and all. There's a lot going on. Like people, like it's funny. I've had a few video and photo guys in on the podcast. I should get Brian in here. He'd be an interesting one because we've known each other for a long time, but like the process of getting that photo is much more involved. Than hey, I just hung out, had a beer, and snapped a photo.
Waiting for the car to come back around. It's like no, you are hustling to get to that moment, and trying to be ahead of these trucks. So, I know he's like taking off like 5 a.m. It's like get ahead and like having to like pick an area of the course where he can get multiple stops. And get some photos.
We when we were doing a lot more work in Baja, Mad Media Crew, like we got to the point where we're just camping because it's more of a hassle getting in and out of the cities. So we would go camp and we're like, hey, we're already in our morning spot. For good light, but no, it's all good. So,
cool.
other off-road races, are there other off-road races that you have on the list?
Yeah.
I mean, you have some undue, some stuff to fix with Vegas to Reno.
I know. I was going to do, I think it was I can't remember which one it was, but when I mapped out our season with XComp, we picked 4 races. Mint was like top of the list. And then I want to say it was San Felipe 250 or maybe Baja 400, but it was one of those 2 that we picked. And then I think the weekend moved and it ended up being like right after Mint. And I was like, oh, we can't go back to back because we're like coming into FD season and all that. And so I was like, we need that time to finish the FD cars. And so we still have 3 races left to do this year. So I was not going to do Vegas to Reno because we had these, other races kind of mapped out and not a point-to-point race. And so with that moving, I think, like you said, I think we have some unfinished business. And, I think the Vegas to Reno is probably going to be back on the calendar. I think California 300 is a conflict. Silver State is a conflict. Nora 500 is open, and I think we're going to maybe try and do Rage at the River. So I was trying to look at the American Off-Road one and see how many of those we can do, but a bunch of them conflict with what we got going on. So,
yeah, Rage at the River is tough. Like that's the Laughlin course. Like that's tough in a stock vehicle.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Oh boy. So I was like, maybe we should talk this out.
Sand ruts. I mean, it's doable. It's one nice thing. It's a 14-mile loop, but it's all soft.
14-mile loop.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So it's all soft, and it deteriorates right away, right? So it's
how many miles is that race?
Usually, so most of the classes do 5 laps a day. So you race
a day.
Yeah, so you race 5 on Saturday and 5 on Sunday. For the Laughlin Desert Classic, we're talking about changing that to race on Friday, Saturday, just so everybody has a travel day back.
Interesting. But, so it's only that's not many miles.
No, it's not.
Yeah, 7
miles. And it's rough. Like it.
Okay.
The course deteriorates. Like honestly, like, and that's why before in our conversation, I'm like, go do Nora. Like, that's a good one to start getting your feet wet, and then pick out the races that are like less punishing, right? Like Vegas Reno is actually a really good one because it's a long race, and it's relatively flat and fast. So if you manage your vehicle, you should be fine.
Yeah.
Silver State this year is actually a really good one. We'll be going to it next week. 100-mile loop that's really fast and flowy and a little technical, but not rough at all.
Which one's that?
It's the Silver State one.
Yeah.
And then
I heard that was a good one too, but I think that conflicts.
Yeah, and then there's a handful of ones. The other ones that are always interesting is the Mexican race leagues, because they race a lot of the same stuff, but it's a kind of a more low pressure, environment.
Yeah.
I did one down there. I've done code and record races down there. Those are the two leagues. One operates out of Ensenada, the other one operates out of Mexicali. So those are some good ones. Vora has some races in Reno area. Those are pretty good. They run a really tight ship, and then there's some various other ones. But
cool. Yeah. No, I mean,
lots to do.
Yeah, we're excited for it for sure. And yeah, like to your question earlier, like, where's the future with us in off road? And I don't really know.
Shaping it now.
Yeah, we literally are. The truck is as good as it's ever been. Still very much a Class 7 vehicle, and I don't foresee us taking that physical truck out of that class.
Sure.
If we're to do something else and getting a Nissan body on a bigger truck, I mean, that sounds really cool. It's definitely a possibility. But yeah, we just kind of have to see where the support lies, because right now the support is towards the production vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, but I also look at it and go, hey, if you're a brand like Nissan, you want to be represented in multiple classes.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
ideally,
have some race trucks,
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying don't race the stock class. I think you should always do that.
Yeah.
Because the ability to showcase the stock vehicle and develop product. When you look at, you go back and you look at these different eras in off-road racing, and like, I'll use the Ranger as a really good platform. There's an era where you could buy a Ranger as cheap, right? You go to junkyard, buy a used one, and shit, you'd be racing for 20 grand. You know what I mean? So it's just having those multiple tiers of platforms to allow people to enter at a level that they're comfortable with, and then go, hey, I want to go faster, which means more money, right?
Well, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same with drifting. It's like you can, like, our cars cost like over $300,000. But you can definitely get a car for $3,000 and go drift it. So like there's the range. So it's obviously it's more money, more speed, more smoke, all that. So but yeah, like you can, like you said, get a cheap pickup truck, throw a couple parts on it, and you can go hang out with your friends and King of the Hammers all weekend long.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to go enter into Mint, you have to get the appropriate safety gear, and then so there's a cost with that, and then but now you're running in an actual sanctioning body, which is cool, and then obviously then you're bit by the bug and you're stuck.
Exactly. Well, hey, thank you for doing this. That was a great conversation,
no, it was awesome.
And I hope to see you do more in off-road racing. And
well, we certainly are this year. We're only a quarter way into it. We got 3 more to go, so we're definitely going to be doing another race with you guys, and we'll see how many more. I got to go back and look at the calendar, because it's like a little, like I said, open on what we're going to do for the rest of the year, but we'll definitely see it one more.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Heck yeah, man. Thank you.
Okay.